HeriForge.
Welcome to HeriForge podcast, a series dedicated to exploring how emerging technologies can strengthen the preservation, interpretation, and user and public experience on cultural heritage. My name is Kristis Alexandrou. I'm an architect and a researcher at the Cyprus Institute, Nicosia, and I will be representing the Cyprus Hub for HeriForge. In this episode, we turn our attention to Cyprus and to one of Europe's more influential heritage organizations, Europa Nostra. Our goal in this conversation is to understand the conditions under which Europa Nostra encounters, engages, or envisions the use of immersive technologies, and we will discuss their current experiences and their aspirations for how XR might amplify the organization's advocacy, educational outreach, and of course, community involvement. Joining us today is Glafkos Constantinides, Director of Europa Nostra Cyprus. And dear Glafkos, welcome and thank you very much for your time and being here today with us. And we look forward to this dialogue on heritage, innovation, and the future of cultural engagement.
Good morning, Kristis. Good morning, Kristis. It's a pleasure to be on this program. I am one of the directors of Europa Nostra Heritage Hub in Nicosia, and I'm really quite pleased to be able to say a few words about this new initiative in Nicosia, which is an offshoot of the Europa Nostra headquarters, the Pan-European network. And one of the directors, we were established early this year in February, but of course the preparatory activities had been going on for about a couple of years, the interaction with Europa Nostra proper. And of course the background of this is that Europa Nostra decided that having done a lot of mobilization and communication with all sorts of European networks and NGOs, they decided to kind of decentralize the objectives and the mission in the sense of bringing the objectives closer to particular regions. And that was done through the instrument of establishing hubs. Hubs is a very clear message that hub is a kind of a center of things. And alongside, of course, Nicosia is a newcomer hub in the family of hubs. There is the hub, heritage hub in Cracovia, in Krakow, Athens, Lisbon, and Nicosia. And there is the prospect of establishing one in Venice, but it's something I'm not intimately familiar with. We just felt very excited by this prospect because cultural heritage can be a kind of an amorphous interest in many countries without a particular shape and direction. And through a number of initiatives like, we can name a few like raising awareness, education, protection, stimulating linkages and identifying linkages. This will actually do a lot of good to heritage, which in a way I feel that is being, I don't want to say threatened, but is being in competition with more tangible things like economic growth, energy, increasing the number of jobs in the preoccupation of governments and other NGOs with well-being, of course, which is a very essential aspiration to start with. But beyond that, then you begin to feel that life can be better. So this is one side of it, just to highlight the importance of heritage as a way of improving the quality of life. So that's one track.
Absolutely. So can I go along this conversation and ask what the influence of the hub of Nicosia will be also in the eastern region of Mediterranean? Is it part of a a larger initiative, the establishment of the hub here in Nicosia?
Yes. Let's say that I just wanted to cover the wider ground and say what the initiative was for establishing the hub. But the particular role the Nicosia hub is covering or serving, if you like, the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East, where there is a rich diversity of cultural heritage and diversity. I don't want to vision this as a kind of the polar opposite of unity. Diversity can be a resource, and it is a resource. And Nicosia is situated where it can reach out to many of the neighboring countries and exactly highlight and stress the importance of cultural heritage. And already we have been able to, within the space of 1 year that we have been active on the ground, been able to not only establish, but also activate and promote contacts with Malta, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan. And it's very, very stimulating to see how even different levels of heritage awareness can be a big challenge to the agenda of Europa Nostra, and its way of bringing together people and with different initial perspectives. And the perspectives get together because of the communality of attitudes towards the importance of heritage. So we've been able to bring people here when we've had two very successful brainstorming sessions. We had one for community awareness, where we had people from Spain and Italy. And then we had the second one shortly after that on a running program of Europa Nostra, which is called the 7 Most Endangered Monuments and Sites, where again it was very successful, and we had people from Romania and Armenia. But then nowadays we have been quite busy bringing people from the Middle East, and it's obvious the diversity as well as the communality, the common and the diverse factors in cultural heritage are there. And this, of course, increases our responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yes. What a nice surprise. I see that Agni Petridou also joined our session.
Good morning.
Welcome, Agni. Good morning. Nice to have you with us. With Glafkos, we already started the conversation. I will go along the conversation now. And of course, you are both free to comment and add your perspectives. We had a short introduction about Europa Nostra and its role and the hub here in Nicosia. So, I was about to ask as upcoming question, what's the unique, how would you characterize the current cultural heritage landscape in Cyprus, and particularly in terms of preservation priorities or emerging challenges? Of course, in this short period of 1 year that you started acting, but I was curious to see if you spotted any unique challenges.
Look, of course, one of our specific objectives, and indeed a focal issue, is the protection of architectural heritage in Cyprus. But of course, by using the very powerful tools of awareness, education, cross-cultural relationships, because this issue in Cyprus has been underrated for many years, and there are also institutional problems which prevent effective protection of architectural heritage. And Agni and myself and our colleagues have organized from the word start of the Heritage Hub in Nicosia, a brainstorming session with all the important NGOs, and it was quite successful. And we have, in fact, after several interactions with important stakeholders like Chamber of Architects, the Chamber of Commerce, architects, engineers, and as well as with some of the governmental institutions, we have established a platform, and we have prepared a report on this, which will soon be released. But what is also important is to share with you is that we have been able to identify and start and launch 5 important projects under the Nicosia Hub. And one of them, of course, is the protection of modern architectural heritage, which is representative of important schools of architectural and design thinking, which was left behind. Another one is on climate change. Another one is on reviving the dying crafts and techniques which were very important in the building industry in the past, and the footprint of which is already evident on many buildings. And another one which is to do with the reinterpretation of the role of the area in the whole city of Nicosia, which is now unkindly called buffer zone. And of course, it's a buffer zone because of its interaction with recent history, whereas in the past it was not a buffer zone. It was a very active business area where the first businessmen of Nicosia emerged from rural backgrounds. So we're now in the middle of promoting these 5 important activities alongside with the preparations for the Europa Nostra summit in Nicosia in May. But I would like to also stress now the importance of bicommunal cooperation in Nicosia with our Turkish Cypriot colleagues and friends. And this should also be explained that Agni Petridou and myself and some other people have been working on bicommunal projects in 1980. Nicosia Master Plan, of course, it's a pioneer project of bicommunal cooperation and relationships and professional connections which we have inherited from those projects are now being utilized in the Europa Nostra Nicosia Hub. And all these 5 activities which I have mentioned, climatic change, modern buildings, artisans, buffer zone, and building technicians, have been set up and defined and shaped up together with our Turkish Cypriot colleagues. And in fact, each one has a Greek Cypriot coordinator and the Turkish Cypriot coordinator. And of course, this fulfills the objective of our hub, which is on bicommunal and peace building. Not peace building, but specifically improving our common understanding of culture is an important tool for further community development.
That looks like a plan, and that you are already progressing and making some progress on actually dealing with
It's hands-on, yes.
hands-on directly. And have you stepped on any challenges on doing those focus groups and common understandings and setting ups for Europa Nostra? Any difficulties or any obstacles that you found so far? Can you make a brief statement of this?
Of course, challenges are part of life. They're always around you, particularly when you are specific in your objectives, if you're ambitious in your goals, and sometimes you realize that the support structure, so to speak, may not be in line with that, but nothing that we couldn't be able to address. But the issue of outreach is a very important word in conversation, but when you actually try to implement it, you encounter a few problems, of course, because people are not available when you want them to be, but these are logistical challenges. We haven't encountered any conceptual challenges, meaning people not sharing the objectives that we wish to promote. And this is, I think, where, I don't know if it's the right thing, I don't want to jump the gun, but technology is very important in giving greater effectiveness to efforts for outreach. when we talk about links in Lebanon and Jordan and Malta, of course, these links have got to be active and effective. And of course, you need technology in order to transfer experiences from one place to the other. It's, there's a lot of talk about sustainability. And I think in this context, I would like to introduce, if I may, the word transferability. One of the important objectives of Europa Nostra at large, as well as of the Nicosia hub, is being able to identify and amplify success stories and important examples where things have been particularly successful. Now, how can you disseminate important heritage goals, which I would say, to use a market context, across the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and make them shareable and enjoyable by everybody within the network that we serve, if you didn't have technology like the one we're using now? So transferability is very important, I think. And I think we are very happy that there are platforms that allow us to actually do that. Personally, I'm not particularly technology literate, but when one is offered to me, I think I can use it to reach out to other people, to other countries, to people with different points of view.
That's really interesting, and that's where I can take actually the lead and ask on top of this, talking about technology, and the focus also of this podcast. Has Europa Nostra already engaged with digital technologies or immersive tools such as 3D documentation, 3D models, AR experiences, or digital storytelling in terms of maybe also forwarding these good stories as a good example of practice to the other countries or for dissemination purposes, as you mentioned? If that's the case, can you describe an example and somehow reflect their impact?
This is where actually where the juncture of exploring this facility, but we're already aware of the need for it, and we're already aware of the expected learning outcomes from using this. We have been able to have online meetings with colleagues in Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, of course, Athens and Malta. I don't consider this to be a major way forward because this has been around for some time. What I had in mind, actually, although I haven't felt the actual need myself to do that, is transferring data. Because let me take you back a few seconds to the 5 important activities we are now promoting under the hub, which is, the buffer zone, the artisans, the modern buildings, the craftsmen. We will digitize the important findings and for demonstration, of course, locally, but primarily is to, in a good sense, to show off our good work to the rest of the region. Now, how can you transfer data out of Cyprus? You cannot really do it very comfortably and effectively or online like this. You need to have a platform for transferring data to films and small interviews and longer interviews to the region and say, hey, this is what we've done. Could you add to this? Could you amplify? Could you also reflect upon this with your own experiences? So I think that we are what I would say with some confidence is that we are realizing the importance of this, and we are aware of the value of using such a medium, but we haven't actually used one to be able to reflect on its challenges and on its success.
Maybe
If I
maybe
may
your
add,
colleague Agni Petridou. Yeah. Please go
Kristis,
ahead, Agni.
Europa
Yes.
Nostra is a policy group and lobby group, but collaborates a lot with research centers and institutions. For example, I know that in Brussels and in the Netherlands, where are the main offices of Europa Nostra, They collaborate a lot with the Europeana, relation with what you was asking before. And in Cyprus, we collaborate a lot with the Cyprus Institute because it's our partner, and it's one of our founding members. And we want to thank also from this platform the Cyprus Institute because they allocated an office to us and we work from Cyprus Institute. Therefore, whenever we need new technology, we shall refer to you. We shall ask your assistance because in Cyprus it's not our role to create our program for new technology. We shall rely on
Thank you,
our
Evgenia.
partners.
Yes. I understand this. However, the use of this technology, from your perspective that you're trying to show off, as Glafkos mentioned, disseminate the success stories of what you do and your objectives. Still, do you think that the knowledge of the potentials and the possibilities of this XR to your organizations or even the private sector out there, do you think that needs to be enhanced in order to use advanced technology toward this objective? And of course, for not just heritage preservation, but also public engagement, user engagement, using immersive technologies?
Of course, it will be very helpful. And the activities that we are doing now that Glafkos mentioned before, we shall use new technologies in order to disseminate our results. And in the case of the environmental activity that we have to do, which it relates climate change together with cultural heritage, we shall need to create small films for children to understand what we are doing, or how they have to protect the environment in their own micro scale and so on. Therefore, we shall come to you probably.
Most probably, yes, I think so.
To collaborate with you.
Kristis, I was saving this for later, but Agni put it in context that the Cyprus Institute, which I have known for many years myself, and have worked with your colleagues in the past. I think it's a leading institution for technologies and immersive technologies and exploring new ideas on technology environment. And it's one of our founding members and supporters. So I think indeed we will be able to, of course, we need to generate some significant results before we can start thinking how to transfer them and disseminate them and share them with other people. But I think it's already beginning to become useful to think about it beforehand. But we consider you to be our allies in this field.
Let's explore then a hypothetical scenario where you, for either dissemination or other collaboration scenarios, you need to get involved with or work with cultural heritage institutions, museums, or other organizations that during that scenario, we don't intervene, or any other research center that does not intervene. Would you embrace the idea, or do you see the need for cultural heritage institutions to be more active or more advanced on using, instead of simple media like videos, photos, using immersive environments, VR, XR environments on demonstrating or creating this digital storytelling? Would you see that tool or that scenario will enhance or improve the impact of your goals and your objectives?
I have the experience of the Technical Committee on Cultural Heritage that they produced they have a digital platform for the monuments, but they collaborate with the Cyprus Institute about to create programs for children. For example, Campanopetra, I don't know whether you know about it.
I'm familiar with,
to show to the children how this basilica, how this monument was initially. Therefore, we have to collaborate with the institutions that is their job to do these things. Of course, in Europa Nostra, in the main headquarters, they have a special office about that. But in Cyprus, we have so many things to do, and we have not either the knowledge how to produce these new technologies. Therefore, we have to collaborate with institutions like yours institution. Of
Okay,
course, we
Glafkos, do you want
understand the
to add?
need.
Yeah, I mean, apart from our need to improve and expand our outreach to other NGOs and institutions that are engaged in cultural heritage in the region, you mentioned cultural heritage institutions which are well established, like museums and research centers, which I think are very important to take into account. But the obvious linkage with this is that each and every one of our activities has an obvious institution abroad and in the region. For example, climate change, environmental research centers in other countries which specialize in the particular area, or the old craftsmen using mud brick or various traditional techniques. There are important institutions that are promoting and funding activities like this. I think I would be very much interested to learn more about it in order to improve my own understanding of how helpful it can be. Also, the project of the buffer zone, I think, is particularly important because I'm more directly involved in this with my colleague Alexandrou. We just, it's an issue which has many tangles. Many people think of it as a kind of a bother now in the middle of the whole city, but it is a heritage area. It has rich architectural and cultural heritage in it in terms of reflected in the buildings and spaces. So it would be very important to be able to share this experience and these ideas and approaches, how we deal with an area which is unkindly idle for so many decades. So I think I would really go along, and I'll be open to streamline this tool into our work.
Thank you. Thank you both. My follow-up questions are going to stress a little bit this idea with XR. Having in mind, or given that Europa Nostra works with endangered heritage sites, and having XR being able to provide workflow from documenting to visualizing intangible heritage or traditions and communicating that in an interactive way, and therefore mobilizing in a better way support. How much would you evaluate the use of such technology, and how much would you say that this technology might be part of the future of Europa Nostra Cyprus in the following years?
I am caught unprepared for this question. I don't want to go wild on technology, and I certainly wouldn't like to, because I am a people's person myself. I mean, when I go to a bank, I like to deal with the teller rather than with a machine, although members of my family are very technological and they make fun of me because I cannot, particularly my second son, who is a technologist. He's telling me that in a few years, there will be a whole cohort of population who will not be able to do banking, will not be able to travel, they will not be able to go to the theater because of technology illiteracy. So I think the more we have available this tool, and we need to understand it and learn it, I think the better our results will be able to impact on Europa Nostra and our partners, and improve our bicommunal also and in the region too. So we are open, but I cannot really comment intelligently on how we exactly we will be using it. So we expect you to be more instructive on this, to be able to.
Thank you very much, Glafkos, yes, for this honest answer. And it actually helping also me to proceed next. So I'm going to skip also the ethical part around the use of these technologies in cultural heritage. So I will move into next questions that have to do with collaborations, academic, municipal, civil society, or private sector. Thinking about those, who do you think of these collaborations are more productive and can ensure high quality initiatives for you, either that might include technology or not?
We have been able to work closely so far with a number of organizations. We have associate members of Europa Nostra Hub Nicosia, the Cultural Foundation of the Bank of Cyprus, the Technical Chamber, architects, engineers,
TVA.
CVAR, the renowned research center in Nicosia. And we have been able also to work or reach out at least with private sector organizations which are more into the marketplace. Also, we haven't been so far particularly active with governmental organizations because they think they know it all, but we can skip that. It's a personal. There is a bit of I think there is a need for greater collaboration or contact with governmental organizations engaged or supposedly engaged with cultural heritage.
But we have very good relations with the local authority in Nicosia with
Yes.
both communities at this level. Of course, the idea is to collaborate a lot with
particularly with
institution-
Nicosia municipality, and also
The other side.
speaking of municipalities, we have been able also to make contact with Mr. Harmanjou, who is our partner in this, together with Haralambos Brunzos, supporting us fully in this, and we have made the effort to brief them fully on our activities.
Also with the contractors and the builders we collaborate. We collaborate with institutions like yours, with these research institutes, but also with very simple people who
And which
dedicate
one would you name the most productive collaboration? I mean,
all of
which
them.
sector? Like
All of them.
Because they are completely different. Now we collaborate, for example, with very old craftsmen who working for many, many years for the Antiquities Department, and we want to collaborate with them in order to train younger builders and young architects and engineers on traditional techniques. So everybody is very important for his area. That's why I say most of them are
Fantastic.
very interested, our partners.
That's great. Thank you both for all these interesting feedback from your side. Before closing, I would like to ask you for a message that you would like to share to cultural heritage professionals, policymakers, or even the locals here, citizens, regarding your role of innovation and safeguarding of Europe's shared heritage.
Can I go on this one?
Go. Yes.
It's very important to increase awareness on cultural heritage because it has been marginalized and underrated for many years as luxury good, which is, I think, it's a gross mistake. Cultural heritage should be part of everyday life. It should be part of the economy, part of the environment, and part of everyday culture. And this is where Europa Nostra can help by increasing awareness, protection, sharing of ideas, disseminating. It shouldn't be one specific sector isolated as a niche product. It should be interest to the universities, research centers, the economy, the business sector, everything. It should be across the board a very important tool for everyday life and for education, of course.
Yes, and from our experience with Glafkos, because both of us our background was by communal collaboration. I think that cultural heritage, especially for Cyprus and with the Near East, the countries of the East Mediterranean area, can be also a peace building tool. And we want to continue this principle. But as Glafkos said also is very correct, that now cultural heritage is not something romantic anymore. Is linked with environmental issues like climate change and with social inclusion. And this is the message that we want to give in Cyprus, that cultural heritage is a resource to resolve problems in our cities and in our island in general.
Thank you both very much for this interesting conversation we had today. I would like to thank also Glafkos for the insightful beginning of this conversation, introducing Europa Nostra.
Yes.
For heritage projects like this are very valuable. Your opinion on these different aspects of also of using different sort of technologies. They help us better understand institutional, social, and technological conditions that can shape the adoption of technologies in the cultural heritage context. And of course, I would like to thank our audience for listening. And until next time, we invite you to keep exploring, questioning, and shaping the future of cultural heritage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kristis.
Go beyond now with Harry Forge.